So the short version is that my predictions were right and that Rolex and Tudor seem to share a photocopier. Hi everyone and welcome to Shaluso, and yes, today I'm talking about the new releases from Rolex and Tudor. Now I'm going to alternate between the two different brands, so if you're after my impressions on a particular model, use the chapters in the description below to jump around. But let's start out with the fact that my predictions were actually right. Starting with the Air-King, in my 2022 predictions video, I said that I didn't know what Rolex could really do with the Air-King. The Air-King, honestly, I don't know what direction they could possibly go with that, and apparently neither did Rolex. So all they did was copy the existing dial design, throw a 0 in front of the 5, add a little bit of lume, obviously change the movement, which was expected, and then they just put the case from the GMT and called that a day. My guess is that Rolex, much like me, didn't really know what to do with this model. They knew they had to replace it, and for reasons unknown, didn't really believe it was a good idea to just discontinue it. So no surprises there. In general, I do actually like the design of the Air-King. However, I would have been curious to see if they could actually come up with something different to what they currently have. But maybe that's for another year. Next, we have the Tudor Black Bay GMT in two-tone. Now, I actually predicted this, but not in my 2022 video. Instead, I predicted this back in 2020. I thought back then, as I did in 2022, that definitely an extension of the Black Bay GMT line was in order. And that's why my prediction from Tudor is that this year in 2020, we will be getting a Tudor Black Bay GMT steel and gold. Since it was released in 2018, Tudor has done nothing to expand this line. So I'm glad they finally took the initiative, added something else to the lineup. And again, I think it makes a lot of sense because they don't have a two-tone version of the Black Bay GMT. And what they did do, which was different from my original prediction, is that they actually used the colors from the root beer for the bezel. And while I normally don't like when they do things that the current Rolex does, I do like when they hark back to history. And of course, this is harking back, at least in terms of having yellow gold instead of rose gold. It is that little bit closer to the original root beer. So if you look at it that way, then yeah, it does kind of make sense. And like I said, I'm glad they've at least added to the Black Bay GMT lineup instead of letting it just sit there being the Pepsi. Next, we have the lightly controversial Rolex GMT Master II in black and green. Now, I haven't actually gotten hands-on with this watch yet. However, thanks to today's sponsor, Chronext, I was able to borrow a GMT Master II Pepsi to be able to show you guys at least what those colors might look like on the ceramic bezel. Chronext is actually one of the biggest pre-owned watch dealers within Europe, and that's why they have such a great range, not only of current Rolex GMT Master IIs, but also vintage and pre-owned ones. They've got the Black Bay GMT, and you can probably expect them to have these new releases in their inventory soon, as well as currently having a lot of the discontinued models. So make sure you check out the links in the description below, and if you find something you like, you can always use the promo code SHALUSO to get a discount on your next purchase. But overall, I think the colors of this new GMT Master II, I think they go quite well with the ceramic, if I'm honest. And I actually predicted back in 2020 as well that this is a colorway that they would explore. And it's gonna be a black and green bezel instead of just a flat black one. And so I think it makes perfect sense that they do it now. What makes a bit less sense though is the fact that they decided to make it a left-handed crown. I think one of the more jarring things is the fact that they moved both the crown as well as the Cyclops. I think had they left the Cyclops at 3, it would have actually looked a bit more balanced. That being said though, it does actually make a fair bit of sense for a GMT to have the crown on a side where you can operate it without having to take the watch off your wrist. I'm actually left-handed and normally wear my watch on the right hand. And for all of my watches, it doesn't really matter that the crown is on the right because I only really have to use the crown when I'm changing the time. And that's when the watch is off my wrist because I haven't worn it for a while. But for something like a GMT Master II, where it is a true GMT, where the idea is that, you land and you change the time on the go, it does make a lot of sense for left-handed people at least to have an option where they can change the time on the watch without taking it off of their wrist. Whether there's enough left-handed people who are interested in this watch, can afford it, and also who will actually use it for its intended purpose, that's debatable. But what I do think it does do is that it adds at least something different to the range, and I think will maybe alleviate a bit of pressure on the GMT Master Steel line in general. I don't think it'll be as popular with the masses. I've spoken to a lot of people who are kind of turned off by it. So maybe it'll be more accessible, though I doubt it'll be available at retail. And last but not least, we have evidence that Rolex has finally lent Tudor their photocopier. With the new Black Bay Pro, it definitely has more than a few overtones of the Explorer 2. I will say, however, that having seen wrist shots of this, it does look a lot less like an Explorer 2 compared to what it looks like in the soldier shots. So I definitely would recommend looking at this watch in person before judging it. For me personally though, I do tend to dislike it when Tudor moves too close to Rolex. And the fact that they've used this bezel that even uses the same sort of finishing as what they use on the current Explorer 2, in the sense of having that sort of radial brushing that emanates from an invisible sensor, for me that's too close. You know, the change from orange to yellow, again, a bit too close. If they were really trying to hark back to historical models and maybe distance themselves a bit, they could have used a red GMT hand, they could have used different fonts. I will say that yes, this does fill in the void left by the Black Bay steel, and also the fact that it does finally answer the demands of a lot of people that they release a GMT in 39mm, but for my taste it's a little bit too close for comfort. That being said though, those are just my impressions of the new Rolex and Tudor releases. I'd love to know in the comments below, what are you guys' thoughts of these new releases? What do you wish they had done? And what do you think of this whole left-handed GMT Master idea? I'd love to know you guys' thoughts in the comments below. And another big thanks to Chronext for lending in both the GMT Master II and Black Bay GMT that I used throughout this video. Make sure you check out their links in the description below and use the promo code SHALUSO if you find anything you'd like to buy so you can get a little discount. And if you like this video, make sure you like it and share it. If you want to see more pictures and infographics of watches as seen throughout this and all my other videos, then make sure you follow me on Instagram at SHALUSO. And if you want to see more videos of watches, then subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell as well so you can know when the next video comes out. In any case, thanks for watching this video, and we'll catch you on the next one.